The week of my wedding, I actually lost my best friend to suicide. That was the pivotal moment of my life where I knew that something has to change. I checked all of the boxes to have landed my very first job in corporate and realized right away that my definition of success and happiness is very different to what the traditional world. I just vowed to myself when I lost my girlfriend that week that no one should ever have to go through what I went through. I had also the responsibility to heal myself first if I wanted to help anyone else. I started taking care of myself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's how Fit to Profit was born. I think the difference is that someone with a growth mindset is always looking for the next lesson. And that's truly the difference. And that's, for me, in my books, is having a healthy mindset.
So what's a practical step that our listeners can take today to enhance their self-awareness?
The minute you choose to...
Hey everyone, it's Sophia from Sacred You. Thank you so much for being here. A quick message before we dive into today's conversation. You may have been watching the podcast videos, but have not had a chance to hit that subscribe button. So if you have ever gained value from our videos, from our conversations, it would mean so much to us if you would hit that subscribe button below right now, or even just give us a like. And what that means is not only does it allow us to grow our subscriber base, but it allows us to bring in more important guests for you to listen to. And you will be one of the first ones to be notified. So please hit that subscribe button and let's get started on today's conversation. Welcome to the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast. Of course, my name's Sophia from Sacred You, but with me, and more importantly, is the wonderful DeDee Cai. Thank you, DeDee, so much for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here today for this conversation.
Thank you. And I'm also super excited because we're having a conversation on something that is really close to my heart, and that is all about net worth and self-worth, and how it's all related. And there's so much more that I want to get to know about you. So can we first start, DeDee? Let's just start and get to know you. Tell us about your beautiful self, a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are now in helping others with their net worth and self-worth.
Yeah, so absolutely. Thank you so much for allowing me the space to share a little bit about my story. I, in a million years, would never imagine to be here where I am today, and I'm super grateful to be here, to do what I do, and to love what I do. So, as a first-generation immigrant, I had a blueprint that I had to follow. So you could only imagine that is to do great in school and then to get a job. And I did exactly that. Everything, I checked all of the boxes to have landed my very first job in corporate and realized right away that my definition of success and happiness is very different to what the traditional world has. So fortunately, right after that, it's only about 6 months, so I only held the position for, it was short-lived. I had an opportunity to start my own business, and which I definitely took on, as building the American dream was also ingrained and conditioned in me. My mom and I, not only in addition to starting a business together with a restaurant, I also helped her with her salon businesses as well. Long story short, 5 years into the brick and mortar space, I realized once again that was not fulfilling my definition of freedom nor success. And tragedy happens right around the same time when I discovered that I knew I was completely burned out, just physically, from the demanding hours of being at the restaurant, 18-hour days, and just working in and day out, especially with wearing so many hats. the week of my wedding, I actually lost my best friend to suicide, which had me also realize that I was suffering from the same. It was just not simple burned out, like running a difficult business, but it was also I was burning out from the inside where I felt depressed and anxious most of the time. And that was the pivotal moment of my life where I knew that something has to change. And interestingly, everything came full circle for me as well. That when I was a little girl, I always imagined myself helping others. But I didn't make that connection. I growing up and as I was being raised in the States, etc. I just knew that I thought I was just going to be an employee, someone else. But that was the moment where I realized maybe my purpose was in connection to how I wanted to be a helper as a little kid to help other people because I just vowed to myself when I lost my girlfriend that week that no one should ever have to go through what I went through. And then, secondly, I had also the responsibility to heal myself first if I wanted to help anyone else. So, honestly, that's how my whole journey began. I started taking care of myself physically, mentally, emotionally, and then last but not least, spiritually. And it has been a journey, and that's how Fit to Profit was born. Out of my love for living the optimal lifestyle and healing myself alternatively, and then going into business and realizing that most of the entrepreneurs were suffering from the same was the lack of self-worth. That's what I get to focus on this day. And also, we've been in business 2025, it's been in 10 years, but it's really getting women entrepreneurs to realize their true potential, really believing themselves. And ultimately, the network piece, how is that connected to self-worth, is because I realized even for myself, until I felt confident knowing that I have the values to provide the world, I was not selling, I was not putting effort into going out there and create the opportunities that I needed to create to be successful in my business. And so that's what I do today. We have a profit first program that I take my women entrepreneurs through. First and foremost, has everything to do with understanding their value proposition and who they are and the expertise. And the second piece is we heal the relationship with money. As I've shared briefly already, that I was first generation immigrant, but I was born in a third world country. So there was big stories around scarcity and how money was limited for me, for us when I was growing up. So I had to truly heal my relationship with money and really understand that I am really self-sabotaging or I am undercharging is because I couldn't believe in myself and or I just didn't know what a hard work or what abundance is supposed to look like for me. And so the second piece, the pillar we focus on is healing our relationship with money. And then last but not least, in combination with allowing the woman entrepreneur to understand her true value, understanding her money story and history, in combination, then last piece in of the puzzle is to basically teach her how to master her sales skills. And we call it selling from the soul, meaning really standing behind our value, our passion, and creating impact by leading people in powerful conversations about how we can possibly help them. AKA, sometimes we call them strategy calls or sales calls. But basically, those are just the 3 steps that I get to focus on. So that way, I can train the women to be unapologetic and also standing for their value to create the impact they want in the world. So people call me a business strategist, a mentor, a sales coach. It doesn't really matter. Ultimately, that's what we do as a company. And on a personal level too, I now reside in Sarasota, my dream land with by the beaches, and I have 2 little ones. I'm also a mom myself, and I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. I've been happily married for 18 years. Yeah, it's a dream come true.
Thank you. I'm just taking a moment just to really absorb that. And thank you so much, DeDee, for sharing the story. You've lived a very interesting life from a whole journey, maybe if I can say 3 lifetimes in one life. And you are an inspiration. Thank you for sharing that. It's incredible what the universe brings us on our journey. It is. And I just like to, when you talked about your friend who passed away and still going through with everything and realizing that you yourself were also suffering from that internal. And now look where you are now. So thank you. I'd love to know, DeDee, how do you believe our mindset about our self-worth is really influencing our decisions that we make every single day?
Absolutely. You said the key word is belief. Yeah. So basically, a mindset, it's just a very general term to describe our set of beliefs, essentially, right? Someone has a certain type of mindset. It could be more negative, it could be more positive, but it's a mindset. So it's just basically how we really sum things up on how we mentally think about certain things. So those are just general beliefs. And in my experience, if someone has a healthy set of beliefs about herself, which is the thought, will generate different feelings in ourselves, which motivates different actions. And then from different actions yields different results. So that's why having the right mindset or having the right belief system is critical, is because it dictates everything else. That at the end of the day dictates the results that we have in our lives. If one person, for example, have two people actually having the same experience, one person can come from a place of, oh my goodness, I have the responsibility here in this whole situation, then she will really take herself through the process of making the right decision the next time and or doing things differently and from a very empowered place. Versus the second person who experienced the same thing, but is really looking at, oh my gosh, this happened to me, and this person did this to me, and because of this situation, this is what happened to me. Then their action will be most of the time inaction, also will result in resentment and frustration and whatever it may be. Then you can already imagine what the result would be. So those are just some, I guess, a different perspective on how we look at mindset. And it either could serve you or is not serving you. And I think the difference is that someone with a growth mindset is always looking for the next lesson. And that's truly the difference. And that's for me in my books is having a healthy mindset. And it's really coming from a place of empowerment versus resentment, and how that's related to anyone's feeling confident or not. And again, I suffered from low self-esteem, you name it. I actually experienced sexual trauma when I was 15. So at a very young age, all the way up into 25 was when I was trying to identify myself and trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Meanwhile, I was trying to make sense why certain things happened to me the way it did. And I use the word responsibility very clearly in my experience, is just because that was the difference. When I first experienced what I experienced, I was really blaming the world and the person and the rest of everything, the society, versus when I really realized that I had the responsibility in it. I can make a difference was when I lost my best friend and realized that I have to do something to help myself. And that was the moment when I really started taking responsibility for my own life. And that's when I also realized that, wow, I really need to reset my mind and how I think about things.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. When those traumatic events happen and we realize that we have to take responsibility for our lives, that it's a great push for us to basically get our lives together. So thank you for sharing that. And what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about linking their self-worth to their financial success?
Again, in my line of work, the biggest misconception, or even I went through it myself, was part of my journey early on, that it was separated. It was separate, right? how I conduct my life is completely different than how I run my business. And my personal decisions have nothing to do with how I operate my business. And that cannot be further from the truth. You are your business, especially when you're an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, or like a small business owner. How you operate your life is how you operate your business. If there isn't a routine in your life and personal life, hence there's no operation in your business because it's the system, right? Like it's a system that you have to build to try it on personally for it to be working out in your life. If, for example, just as simple as having a schedule of non-negotiables on the schedule, most of my entrepreneurs, when they came to me, they don't have a list of non-negotiables, nor they really need to understand what are the MITs, which is the most important task they need to be doing in their business on a daily basis to move the business forward. And I had to do that on a personal level, right? When I realized that, oh my goodness, I have to reset everything. Okay, so what do I start my day with? When I start my journey of healing, what is the first thing should I be doing every single day to help myself physically, mentally, and emotionally? So I developed my own routine of, okay, I'm going to need to perhaps quiet time in the morning, and then I probably need to exercise. And then I love to write, so I started journaling. So that was honestly my first process in really building our business today. So that way we have the time to be efficient with what we need to do in our business to be successful. So we're all interconnected. Like what we do personally and what we do professionally is the same thing, but it's just in different context and we do different tasks, if that makes sense. For the longest time, I thought I was showing up in my business because I was showing up because someone was holding me accountable, or I was showing up because someone wanted me to be at a networking event, things like that. And I thought I did okay there. But then I didn't really have a system in my personal life how I really conduct myself. Honestly, that's how I got burnt out. I was not taking care of myself. I was not setting the right boundaries and things like that. So the business could only grow as much as it did. Like with the brick and mortar to be exact. And so that's why after 5 years, I was completely burnt out. And that's why I couldn't, in retrospect, could it have been more successful? Absolutely. If I had a system to build out to support myself personally, so that way I can grow myself as a business owner. That's the first thing. A lot of people think it's separate. Oh, I run my business this way, run my life this way. It doesn't work like that. And and then secondly, oftentimes one of the biggest mental block and challenge as well too, that they feel like they have to do everything themselves. I did. Well, more for me was from out of scarcity because it will cost me money to hire people. But the one thing that we forget to realize is sometimes hiring someone else is actually cheaper. So, for example, right now I charge $500 to $1,000 for each hour consulting. Can you imagine that we're going to sit there and do my filing? We don't do that anymore, but I'm just using that as an example. If I sit there and do my filing myself instead of hiring a virtual assistant or an assistant to help me with that, maximum is $50 an hour versus $1,000. So that's also a big barrier for most business owners as well too, especially when they first start out. Don't get me wrong, do everything that you can, of course, within reasons and within your capacity and your boundaries with your schedule. Do everything you can when you first start. But at the same time, at some point, if you're starting to bring in clients, start making money, your time seeing clients or your time vetting potential clients is much more valuable. And to be able to see that is also a key to really seeing your own value and being able to connect that with net worth, as you say, or as you asked already, right? Like $1,000 an hour, which is a waste if you're just sitting there filing for 10, 15, $50 an hour. So it has everything to do with the way you look at how valuable your time is and how much your expertise is worth.
And thank you for sharing that. And I totally agree. For both things, it's being very different. Being an entrepreneur is very different from working for someone else, right? And
Absolutely.
you're an entrepreneur, your business is your life. So how you conduct your life is a direct reflection to how well your business becomes. So totally.
Yeah. I would also challenge that too, Sophia, that it's almost the same different context as an employee, right? When I'm an entrepreneur, my business is my livelihood. When I'm an employee, my job is my livelihood, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm not taking care of myself on a personal level to where I'm going to show up at my job performing at my highest level, my livelihood is being jeopardized. So it's the same. It just would just happen to be an employee environment versus the entrepreneur environment. So being in peak performance is super crucial to anyone and everyone, and especially in this world. Everybody's either working a job or working a business.
Yeah.
And it's the same, right? Entrepreneurship, being your business owner and a CEO, yes, it's what I can tell you it's 1,000 times harder. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's not, because it is. It's really like self-development on steroids. So if you're not in for being uncomfortable and failing a lot, I wouldn't recommend it. But I would say that it's very similar also to operating at the highest level, being an employee. Unless you just choose to be a okay employee and being okay with where you are. But if you're looking for, remember the keyword I said earlier was growth, having the growth mindset. You always want to take it to the next level. Unless you are really performing in your current position, you are not going to be promoted. But how can you ensure yourself to be in position to be promoted when the position like opens up? It's because you have to take care of yourself so you can show up day in and day out, fulfilling your position and doing even more, taking initiative, doing more than what you're already doing for that next level. So it's truly the same, honestly, right? Like we're doing different things as an entrepreneur versus an employee, but how we show up for ourselves has everything to do with what dictates our net worth, whether it's a salary or revenue.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. Really appreciate it. And I'd love to go into more, DeDee, because you're talking about value. We're talking about self-worth.
Yes.
So in your experience, how does, undervaluing ourselves contribute to burnout? And what can
Oh my
we
gosh.
do to take the first step?
Mhm.
Recognize the whole pattern. What did you do? How did you recognize the pattern of burning out?
Yes. So the burnout symptoms usually happen early on and undetected. So it could be, but my first, I would say, notice to any burnout or specifically, more specifically here, because the burnout happens after you have been undervaluing yourself for a while. There's a threshold to that. But the first sign that you're undervaluing yourself, for me, in my experience, is when you're not motivated in your business or your job, and there is slight resentment or frustration. Resentment towards the employer or your business, and frustration with yourself. Because I remember when I undercharged for what I wanted to charge, especially the life experience. 2 years ago, we launched a membership after having only worked with people one-on-one. And you already know one-on-one rates, we charge so much more than a membership. A membership is just something that people pay for. And I just did it with the intention that, oh, this is how you scale. So that way you can leverage more of your time, etc. It sounds, all the pros were amazing. And we were also at the time where we wanted to launch something different. And supposedly low ticket because it's membership. It's $97 a month versus $18,000. You can already imagine, right? With the hopes that, yeah, people are going to buy in. Unfortunately, yes, we were able to sign in ten membership clients very quickly. And what I came to realize is people at the $97 a month are very different than And even when I was showing up, to teach a $97 a month masterclass versus when I was seeing my clients one-on-one and I was so much more emotionally and mentally invested. I was coming into the call with everything I had every single time to make sure that my clients had whatever she needs to be successful. And it was reciprocal. She was showing up the same way. That's when I realized, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not saying that the strategy is broken. I didn't say that. It's just not, it happened not to be our strategy because of the work that we do. As you can see already, we do really deep work, and it can't just be for certain things. It cannot be in a group setting. It has to be a one-on-one scenario. So long story short, that's when I realized after having the program for 6 months, I shut it down and I went back to doing a variation of the one-on-one, but it was more hybrid. It was one-on-one and small group. Because like I mentioned, there are some things that we can do per group because actually it's empowering because you get other people's energy. And then there's situations where you have one-on-ones. I'm grateful for the experience, but at the same time, that was also a very clear example of where I was undercharging for my service and then I was not showing up for it. My clients didn't show up for it. And that was exactly the proof I needed that if I'm undervaluing myself, it's not, I'm doing a disservice to my clients first and foremost, and then to myself. So that I would say that is a clear example. And for you to know that the minute when you're not excited about serving your clients and you're not feeling challenged serving your clients, that's when you know that you're complacent, and that's when you know that something is not working.
Absolutely. And thank you again for sharing that, because and I love it when I'm not valuing myself or I'm undervaluing myself, I'm doing a disservice, which is so very true. And people don't, in generalization, a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs don't really stop and think about that. You know, they're always worried about how much people can pay, how much this. And it's really when I put my true value on it, then I'm actually serving others.
Yeah. And you're not, it's so interesting too. It's almost like you're not asking your clients to step up to the plate. You're not giving them an opportunity to show up and to try out to really test out their basically potential.
To be the best version of they can be at that particular time. So, DeDee, what advice would you give to someone else who's feeling stuck? They want to live a fulfilled life, but they're feeling stuck, particularly when there's so many challenges and they're overwhelmed by everything that life is bringing us. What advice do you give someone like that?
Well, the first thing I would say is I'm just going to declare this for anyone, even if they don't see the light yet, that any challenge, I always call it every obstacle is an opportunity. So every feeling of stuck or anything that's negative or a trial that you're going through is temporary, right? That just normalize that because it is true, right? Feeling you can be stuck for one day or you can be stuck for 3 years, but you're only going to be stuck for that amount of time. So it's temporary. And the second thing I would really get into with that person is that asking them the question of if you had the answer, if you can just guess the answer, because often the time we don't know the answer, right? When we feel stuck, we don't know the answer. But if I were to ask them, if you could just guess the answer, what would it be? Like you don't have to know, just guess it. And even I can do that with my 4-year-old, right? I have a 4-year-old boy. And oftentimes he would say, oh, I can't get this wheel to spin because very, and what is it, metaphoric, right? If I can't get this wheel to spin, what do I do? I'm stuck. I'm like, are you stuck? What do you think that could be done if you knew the answer? Or what do you think you can do next? He immediately asked me, I can look all around to see if there's anything in it that God has it stuck. So we can always guess for the answer, right? And then within that process, that's how you immediately get unstuck. And then for the right there, and also we can make a choice of getting unstuck. Because I can tell you, if we come from responsibility, everything that we have or don't have yet in our lives, we are 100% responsible for it.
And that much I totally agree with you.
So being stuck is also a choice.
It is.
You can say, I'm stuck and feel stuck. Or what if you just guess the answer and then you just take that action, whatever that drives you, and then choose, okay, I'm going to see if this is going to work. That's your choice of getting unstuck. Yeah. Those are very simple steps. I use it again with my kids, with my little guy. So I feel like that is very manageable for all of us. And honestly, I use that now often, so much so for myself too. Because again, like you said, there's so many things like around us, right? Like there even is a name for it, silver, what is it? Shiny object syndrome. There's even a name for it. So I would do the same exercise with myself when there are too many strategies, even at especially the beginning of this year, we're looking to apply certain strategy for the year to improve our business. I always go back to that. Well, I don't know which strategy to go for. Just like I feel stuck, right? Same thing. And I said, what if you knew the answer? Which strategy would it be? And truly, we always know the answer because we're always going to pick the one that we like the most. And usually that is the answer. It might not give us all the details and things that we might have to change and iterate in the process and things like that. But our first instinct, or not first instinct, but our one decision that if we take a step back to really assume is the right decision when we allow ourselves to listen to ourselves. And honestly, that process in itself is a way to build your self-worth. You really learn how to trust yourself in that process instead of listening to everyone else or looking at everything else that's happening around you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's true. When you just ask yourself and trust your own answers, listening to your own answers, even if you don't know. But again, what if you did?
Yes, what if you did? That's just like guessing, right? Like, then what's your guess? What could it be?
Oh, and that's the start. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'd love to know, DeDee, I'd love to move on with your business because we've got lots to talk about, your business and your book and things like that. But tell us about your own experience with building your business or your program, the Fit to Profit program. How has that shaped your understanding?
Yeah.
Of the
I would
connection?
say that the business has honestly, I have completely surrendered to aligning my journey with the business and allow it to evolve. And that's why it has been so fulfilling. And so I'm not going to say that it has been easy this past 10 years. It hasn't, but at the same time, it has been so rewarding. And I can tell you, as you grow to that next level, being an entrepreneur, I feel that much more confident about who I am as a person because it's self-development on steroids, right? The minute that you set a new goal for your revenue, it takes a different person to step into being a CEO to generate that revenue. So it's not complicated, it's not difficult, but I'm also going to say that it's not easy. It is not it's not the journey for the faint of hearts. Like it has to be someone truly for just like for me, this is my purpose. This is my calling. This is my purpose. This is what I was designed to do, is to heal and help other people as I am doing that for myself. And I know also too, almost every one of my entrepreneurial friends started their business not because they wanted to make the money. I didn't want to make the money. I started Fit to Profit because I wanted to help people. So
And
if
that
you're in business of helping people, that's how you know that you can stay in it no matter how hard it gets.
and that again, thank you for sharing, is so true and such a powerful point that if you're in business for helping people, gives you a totally different awareness, a totally different mindset that, I'm in business to make money. Yes, we all want to make money, but the underlying foundation is that we want to help people, and then we allow the money to come, the finances to come. So thank you
Exactly.
so much for sharing.
Money's just an exchange of energy, right? Like you're giving your time, giving your love, giving your dedication,
Yeah.
offering that to someone because you have given up something. You need to be reciprocated so that way the world spins. Right? So I can sustain myself, so I can continue doing what I need to do to continue creating the value for others. And that's how we are like we're all connected, and that's how we support each other spiritually. That's why that's a spiritual piece in our values too. Is like we exist for each other.
Totally agree with you, DeDee. So thank you. Thank you very much. And as well as having that, I'm going to say barrier, that mindset, that belief about the money and the serving, a lot of people think that we need the money before we can serve. But in your experience, what are some other barriers that women, especially women entrepreneurs, face in creating their financial freedom? And how do we overcome them?
Yeah. What's really interesting is we have the biggest, and again, before I made friends with it, we have this huge thing against selling. And I want to say one of my biggest teaching from one of my mentors is selling is really honestly the way of life. It's just we have to name it that in business because think about it. I have to get my 4-year-old to put on his shoes to leave on time for school. I have to approach him in a certain way with certain words to get him to do that. That's selling, right? If you are with a significant other right now in your relationship, and whether you're dating or you're married, I had to sell myself somehow to get him to agree on to go on a first date with me, to have now to be married. So that's selling. We don't call it selling because it's like relationship and things like that. But if you really think about it, technically, that's what it's all about. So selling is the way of life. We just have to really embrace it in that sense. It's almost, can you really get somebody bought into what it is that you want them to do for themselves? Seeing a solution, seeing a better way of doing something, or doing something that you want them to do because you know is good for them, that's selling. But we don't look at it the same way when it comes to selling our services. We think of, oh, that's filthy because we're trying to get money. No, just like if we're trying to help people, the only way to help people is to be able to help ourselves so that we can help them. The transformation only happens at the beginning when they decide, yes, I'm going to invest in myself, especially for coaches and consultants and things like that, right? So we have to really lean into it. And that's why I teach it in a way where we have to feel confident first about who we are as people. So then the selling comes naturally. And it's not salesy, or you don't have to be sleazy like car salesmen to sell. It's just like you're offering, we call it an offer. We offer a solution. When you are buying gas, you're buying a solution. When we're buying food at the grocery store, we're buying a solution. And then making that connection. I think us women, we're just seeing sales as sales, and we're trying to get money out of it. And it's almost like we're trying to corner someone. I think that is the limiting mindset that all of us women have. So we can shift that to serving instead of selling. You can't serve them unless you have sold them something, right? So it's like really truly like serving, but the sales need to happen before the serving happens. So
And it's so true. So thank you for sharing that too. Thank you a lot, but it's really true. You're speaking my language. Totally understand where you come from. And everything in life, if we're looking at it, is solving a problem.
yes.
We're able to go out and solve problems for people, then the financial energy will come to us, but we just got to look at what problems can we solve.
Yes. And being connected. I mean, my key to staying in it this long and still as passionate or even more passionate is every day I connect myself to the solution. I
Yeah.
think about my solution and how big the ripples effect will go, right? If just one person
Yeah.
were to come across my program, that is how I get up in the morning. It's if I could just have one entrepreneur to invest in herself, she will make more money in her business. Her kids will go to private school, whatever school, or do whatever extracurricular activity, and they have better like options for their lifestyle. They can do more work of whatever they love, and their kids and their grandkids and like everything, the world will be a better place. Connecting that. And oftentimes, again, women are distracted with so many things. We have a hard time focusing, first and foremost. So then we get lost in the mundane activities of what we need to do with our business, and that we're not focused on why we're doing it in the first place. That's why having a routine and the non-negotiables, like what I have, it's the 4 F's in my business, which is I have my faith, my fitness, my family, and my fulfillment. All happens in that order every single day. That's how I stay focused on my purpose and connected to why I do what I do. So that way, when things get hard, I'm not saying I'm a robot, but I'm able to shift my mind very quickly to that's okay. That didn't work. What can I do? What else can I be doing? What's the next solution?
Yeah, and always looking for the solution. And I love it how you also talked about the ripple effect. If we could just have one person that we can help, right, a client, whatever, but we forget that how we're actually helping everyone else who's connected to that one person.
Yes.
Touching the lives of people. In Sacred You, one of our mottos, one of our mantras is to touch lives everywhere. And that is just helping that one person, that one woman empower themselves. And then you've got the ripple effect afterwards. If you could condense the most impactful lesson from your journey, from your life, into just one sentence, what would that be?
So it's definitely related to something I released a couple years ago, but it's definitely defy your lie because you are the overcomer. I believe that each and every one of us is handed something that we can't handle, and every obstacle is an opportunity. And for us, Fit to Profit, we talk about us being leveled and trained and fit on all levels. So that way we can overcome whatever we needed to overcome. And usually, talking about mindset, it's always that one limiting belief. But that one limiting belief is a lie. So, what is the lie that you're living? And it's time to overcome it. Really execute the action plan today.
Yes. And again, thank you for sharing that. And what a wonderful segue into your book, into The Overcoming, which is a wonderful read. So for everyone who is listening or watching the podcast, do click on the links below. Connect to DeDee, first of all. Check out her website and also check out this book, The Overcomer. And you mention in the book, DeDee, the importance of conquering limiting beliefs. We're talking about limiting beliefs. What is one belief that you've had to overcome? And how did you actually change it?
Believe that I feel like it keeps coming up time and time over again. And especially it has to do with everything that overcame, and also how I was raised, was that you have to basically settle what you're dealt, meaning like whatever card you're dealt, you basically have to settle. And that is something that I realized very early on, having to overcome the healing of my trauma and things like that, that is not true. I don't have to settle. No one should ever have to settle. So that would be my ultimate belief that I'm definitely have been working on, is that no, do not settle for less.
Yeah.
Do not settle for less. I'm sure people have heard it before, but that's my biggest one. Do not settle for less. And I really truly believe that I can have it all. You can have it all. You can have it all. Whatever it looks like, everyone's life is different, but truly you can have it all.
Totally, whatever that all looks like for you. As you said, everyone's life is different, but we can really have what we want. We just have to make those steps and to overcome all the stuff that's going on in our mind that's limiting us, that's stopping us.
Absolutely.
And in the Overcomer, in the book, you write about achieving goals through self-awareness. So what's a practical step that anyone who's watching or listening today can take today? What's a practical step that our listeners can take today to enhance their self-awareness?
I would say prioritize yourself. Is there a slot on your calendar that is self-care related? That is completely for you. And I'm not saying sleeping. That is a requirement. And whether you're doing a great job with that or not, like that is a requirement. But is there any time on the calendar? For example, for me, my morning routine, it's a non-negotiable. And even with my kids, they get up at 6:30 in the morning to get ready for school. I get up at 5, so I beat them to it so I can have the time for myself, because I know how crucial, how important it is that I have that time. So that's the first step. And if you're not in a routine yet, you don't know where to start, I would say start putting 5 to 15 minutes on your calendar of doing something that you love doing. It could be playing with your pet. It could be listening to music. It could be taking a walk. It could be you just basically what you're starting is a self-care system. Self-care system that is going to build and compound over time. It could be starting with 1 day a week, then 2 days, 3 days. It's going to compound over time. But the minute you choose to prioritize yourself, your world is going to transform.
And I love that again, how you say that. The minute that you choose to prioritize yourself, in generalization, and especially women, because women are mothers and those who are entrepreneurs, prioritizing the self is at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, it has to be
for
the top.
others. So
yes.
The minute you prioritize yourself, the world will transform.
Yeah. If you study, like you can Google this, if you study 2 or 3 habits that the most successful people do, right? You're always going to see fitness. You're always going to see self-reflection. You're going to always see them strategizing. That's time for themselves. The top 5%, the top 1%, that's exactly what they do. So, of course, we're not to that level of success yet, because those are the missing pieces, which normally most of the population don't follow. Hence why the most population is the bottom 90%.
Totally. I'm wondering, DeDee, thank you for sharing that too, but I'm wondering, do you have your book with you?
Yes, I do. It's right here.
The Overcomer. Conquer your fear, achieve your goals. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes, beautiful. No, I really appreciate this. Thank you so much for hosting the podcast, having this space for us so we can have this type of conversation. So yeah, so we can create the ripple effect that we need in the world. And absolutely, I know how much work and energy it takes to be putting all of this together. So I really appreciate you having me and doing this.
We appreciate you being here, really, truly. Before you leave, can I just ask you, is there anything else that you would like to share?
I would say my last calling for whoever is listening is you only have one life. We all have one chance. Why not invest in yourself? So invest in yourself, whatever that looks like. If you again get stuck, where do I start? Send me a message. I'm sure I can help guide you figure out your very first step of what that looks like. But I can truly tell you until I decided, remember when I lost my best friend, lost myself, almost even calling the end of it, right? Like ready to end it all. I decided to invest in myself, and my life is completely transformed.
Which is
So,
such a wonderful thing. So thank you for
so
sharing.
invest in yourself because you deserve it.
In whatever way that means, even if it's like you said, just for 5 minutes of true self-care, of doing something that you want to do.
Mhm.
And then I'm
Absolutely.
a personal believer, DeDee, I don't know about you, that when we take time for ourselves, when we prioritize time for us, it's like the universe gives us more time
Yes.
to do everything else. But when we're actually prioritizing ourselves first, then everything else happens easily. And
Absolutely.
thank you. Again, thank you so much. For everyone who is listening or watching, do click on these links below. Connect with DeDee. Reach out for a strategy call. Check out the programs and also the book, Be Overcomer, that you're meant to be and overcome all these limiting stuff that's just holding us back. Thank you, DeDee.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today and tuning into DeDee's inspiring journey. We do hope this conversation has sparked new ideas about your self-worth and how it relates to your net worth. Please do reach out to DeDee on the links below to find out more and to connect with her for a conversation. If you found today's episode valuable and you're looking for a supportive community, visit us at www.sacredu, that's the letter U.love. Become part of a global family dedicated to connection, empowerment, and holistic well-being. And as always, if this discussion spoke to you, please subscribe to our channel, share the podcast with a friend, or leave us a review. Let's spread the light and help others discover their own pathways to well-being. Until next time, stay grounded, stay inspired, and most importantly, stay connected. From our hearts to yours, thank you.